This happened not long after I turned 36, around a few months ago. I was a carpenter, and I'd always prided myself on being practical and grounded. I'd heard tales of the local healer, but I never trusted her remedies. They seemed silly to me, almost like tricks. I remember mocking her at the town meeting, thinking everyone else had been hoodwinked. I've never stopped thinking about it since that day. The village had its charm. Old stone walls, dilapidated yet quaint shops, and that healer's cottage, always overgrown with herbs. I felt a kind of discomfort each time I passed by. Maybe it was just her strange flowers, blossoming where the shadows met the sunlight. I could feel the tension in the air even then. After I ridiculed her, something changed inside me. That night, I felt a sharp, tingling sensation in my left arm. I thought maybe I had strained a muscle while working. I went to bed thinking it was nothing. But the next morning, the pain was still there and worse than before. I stared at my arm, wondering if I had set my tools down too hard. In the days that followed, more unsettling things began to happen. I noticed my tools had rusted overnight. They had a musty smell that I hadn't recognized before. I could almost hear them whispering when I was alone in my workshop. Shadows began darting just outside my vision. I thought I was losing my mind. Maybe I was just tired from work, but something felt deeply wrong. As the tingling in my arm evolved into a gnawing pain, I kept glancing over my shoulder. I felt my heart racing for no reason, as if I was being hunted. At times, I froze in the middle of a task, feeling a different fear creeping in. A sensation that something inside me was working its way deeper. Right now, I can't tell if it was my body betraying me or if the healer had unleashed something upon me. I've searched for answers, but the unknown presses down on me. Still, I think back to that meeting, the laughter mingling with my doubts. Last night, things got worse. The pulsing pain in my arm felt like a heartbeat, but not mine. I barely slept. Then I heard a sound outside my window. It was low, almost a whisper. The shadows were back. I am not sure what they want, but they're here, and they are watching me. I thought about the healer and her strange words. What if I can't stop what's happening? What if it's too late for me? Then I saw a figure in the darkness. It just stood there staring at me. My breath caught in my throat. I rubbed my eyes, hoping it was just a trick of the light. But when I opened them, the figure was still there. My heart raced. Who or what was it? I wanted to call out, but I felt paralyzed. I blinked, and it shifted slightly, tilting its head, still watching. I could feel my own fear rising as the darkness thickened around it. I stumbled back, wishing I could escape. My arm throbbed, the pain reaching from my fingertips to my shoulder. What did I do? Why did I mock the healer? The whispers were growing louder now, almost as if they were echoing from the figure. I gripped the table, my nails digging in. I knew I had to face it, whatever it was. But what if this was the start of something I couldn't control? I couldn't stop shaking. I could barely breathe. The shadows wrapped tighter around me, and I felt utterly lost in the darkness. My heart pounded in my chest as I stared at the figure, still stuck in my own fear. I could almost feel its gaze boring into me, chilling my bones. It was unsettling, but more than that, it felt like a proclamation, as if it was here for a reason, and that reason was me. I tore my eyes away from it. I had to find a way out, but the shadows mingled with the whispers, wrapping around my thoughts. Desperate, I turned back to the window, looking for any sign of the night outside. But the world had grown eerily quiet. There were no crickets singing, no wind rustling through the trees, only the weight of nothingness. Then, without warning, the figure stepped closer, and I froze. A glint of moonlight caught something in its hands. My breath hitched as I realized it held a small bundle of herbs, just like those I'd seen outside the healer's cottage. They glimmered ominously, almost like they were alive. You think I'm here for you." It was a voice, soft yet resonant, cutting through the silence. It felt like a dagger, sharp and unwelcoming. "You've awakened what you do not understand." It took everything in me not to shout or run. Instead, I stood still, caught between fear and confusion. "What do you mean?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The figure laughed, a low, haunting sound. "You ridiculed magic, dismissed your own truth, but you cannot escape what's inside you now." With each word, it stepped closer. "You've sown seeds of doubt, and they have taken root, and now—" The air thrummed with a tension I couldn't shake. I felt it, something writhing in my arm, twisting beneath my skin, as if it were alive. My resolve began to crumble. What did I start? Suddenly I remembered that night I had mocked the healer. Her eyes had glimmered with a knowing sadness, and now the weight of my disregard pressed down on me. The shadows swirled and danced around the figure, and fear clutched my chest tighter. I looked at my arm, the pain intensifying as if it recognized the figure's presence. My instinct screamed at me to flee, but I felt rooted to the spot. There was something real here, a depth I couldn't yet comprehend. "You can try to hide," the voice whispered, "but lack of belief won't save you from what's to come." The figure raised the herbs as if to emphasize its point. "Embrace your fate, or watch it consume you." I felt everything close in around me. The shadows thickened, drowning out the very air I breathed. My vision faltered, and the weight of knowledge pressed down on me. I was beginning to see the truth. It would claim me, whether I liked it or not. Then, everything went dark. The shadows expanded, swallowing up my surroundings until I could see nothing at all. I felt a hand on my shoulder, icy and unyielding, and I recoiled. Someone was in the house, and there was no escape now. I gasped, the air cold against my lungs. Darkness surrounded me, stretching on like a suffocating blanket. My heart raced as I stumbled back, trying to put distance between myself and that hand. It was too real, too solid. "Who's there?" I choked out, my voice barely rising above the thick silence. There was no reply, only the sound of my own breathing echoing in my ears. I blinked rapidly, straining to see, but all I could make out were shifting shadows, being swallowed, reshaped, and reshuffled around me. Then I felt a sudden tug at my sleeve. Panic surged through me. I turned, instinctively trying to pull away, but the grip tightened. "Stop!" I cried, my voice breaking. Whoever, or whatever, held me wasn't about to let go. "Calm yourself." A low voice emerged from the dark, cutting through the oppressive silence like a knife. "You've already set things in motion." The grip loosened just enough for me to turn and face the source of the voice. It wasn't the figure from before, but a different silhouette, softer in shape yet still bearing an uncanny presence. "You're not here to hurt me?" I asked, fear lacing my words. "I'm here to guide you," the voice said. It felt strangely familiar, yet chilling. "You've unleashed a force that won't rest until it finds you." "Unleashed? What do you mean?" I stammered. Clarity began to creep back into my mind, but fear tugged at me. "I don't understand what's happening." A faint glow sparked from the figure's hands, illuminating the space just enough to reveal their face. A woman's, with dark, knowing eyes that seemed to pierce into my very soul. "The healer warned you," she said softly. "You laughed in her face. Now the magic you denied seeks to claim you." Suddenly the memory of that night flashed in my mind. I could still see the way she'd looked at me, the pain palpable in her gaze. "I didn't mean to. Intent does not bind the magic." She stepped closer, the light flickering around her. "You carry the darkness within you now. It feeds on your doubt and your fear." I shook my head, struggling to grasp her words. "But I don't believe in magic." "Belief does not matter," she interrupted. You've awakened it, and it grows stronger with each moment you deny it. As her words sunk in, I felt that familiar twisting sensation return, now pulsing through my entire body. Every instinct screamed for me to escape, but I found myself frozen, the shadows closing in around me. "Find the herbs," she urged. "They hold the key to understanding. Only then can you uncover the truth." The shadows darkened, growing even thicker as if they were alive, pressing against me like an unseen weight. My breath quickened again as the chill seeped deeper to my bones. I felt something shift behind me, an all-too-familiar presence re-emerging. "Do it quickly before it finds you," the woman warned, her voice now a whisper carried away by the growing darkness. Then everything went black again, the shadows consuming every hint of light, and I was left standing alone, with only the echoes of her warning in my ears and an overwhelming sense of urgency clawing at my chest. The next day I didn't know where to start. The woman's warning echoed in my mind like a hammer on an anvil. Find the herbs. It felt like a code I didn't have the key to. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall, feeling the weight of the shadows that had cloaked me last night. I had to take action, but I wasn't sure how. I decided to visit the healer. I couldn't shake the image of her face, the hurt in her eyes from my laughter. Maybe she held more answers. Wrapping my coat tightly around me, I stepped outside, the cold air biting against my skin. The village was waking up, but I felt like an outsider, wrapped in my own turmoil. The healer's hut was at the edge of town, almost shrouded in its own gloom. As I walked, I thought about all the herbs I'd seen her gather. I had watched her make potions, but I had never paid attention to what they were for. I knocked on the door, unsure if she would even want to see me. It creaked open slowly. There she was, looking different than I remembered, her skin pale and her eyes shadowed. "You," she said, her voice low and steady. "Why have you come?" I need your help," I stammered. "I didn't believe you before, but something happened to me. I need to know about the herbs." The healer's expression didn't change, but she stepped aside, allowing me to enter. Inside, the air felt heavy and fragrant, like old memories wafting through the air. I looked around at the jars filled with mysterious contents, my heart racing with unease. "Did you come to mock me again?" she asked, her tone hardening. "No," I exclaimed. "I'm sorry, I didn't take it seriously." My voice trailed off under her piercing gaze. "I've unleashed something I can't control. I need to find the herbs that can help." Her eyes softened slightly, but a shadow still lingered there. "Not every herb brings healing. Some can bind, some can curse." "Then tell me which ones," I urged, desperation clawing at my voice. She hesitated, glancing at a shelf cluttered with jars. "The herbs of the night. They are tricky and can lead you deep into the unknown." Suddenly, I felt that familiar tug of fear creeping back in. "What do you mean?" "There are dangers in seeking what was unbidden," she warned, her expression grave. "You risk losing yourself in the search." A chill shot down my spine. "I don't care. I need to understand what's happening to me." She studied me a moment longer, letting the tension stretch uncomfortably between us. "Then you must find the moonflower and the nightshade. They will reveal the truth, but they do not come without a price." As she spoke, I felt the shadows press against me, whispering, pulling me backward. "Where can I find them?" I asked, desperate. "They grow in the forest, but only under the light of the crescent moon," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And once you venture into that darkness, you may never return." That was when I heard it. A low growl from outside, something dark shifting just beyond the threshold. My heart sank as I turned toward the door. "What was that?" "Get out," she said sharply. "Now." I bolted for the exit, the shadows clawing at my back as I fled. I didn't know what waited for me out there, but I had no choice. I had to find those herbs, even if it meant confronting the darkness head-on. As I ran, the weight of her warning pressed heavily on my heart. Time was running out, and I feared something was very much after me. The woods loomed ahead, their gnarled branches twisting like fingers reaching out to catch me. I felt breathless as I plunged into the darkness of the trees. As soon as I crossed the threshold, the air thickened, almost suffocating. I could hear the rustling of leaves, but it felt like they were whispering secrets meant for someone else. I pressed on, my heart racing. Each step felt heavy as my mind replayed the healer's warnings. The moonflower and the nightshade, I repeated under my breath, but the path blurred and twisted. I tried to keep my focus, but shadows skittered from the corners of my vision, taunting me. Then came that growl again. The sound echoing through the canopy, more pronounced this time. It was close. Panic surged within me, and I quickened my pace, every instinct screaming to turn back. But the thought of staying trapped in my ignorance pushed me forward. Deeper, somewhere ahead, a pale light flickered, promising hope. I followed it, desperate to escape the gnawing dread at my heels. My breath became ragged as I stumbled over roots and rocks. Just when I thought I might collapse, I burst into a small clearing. In the center stood a single moonflower, its petals glowing softly in the dim light. Next to it, the dark allure of nightshade grew, its leaves shimmering with a sinister promise. I approached them cautiously, feeling a mix of awe and fear. "This must be it," I murmured, reaching out toward the moonflower. Before I could touch it, a voice sliced through the silence. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, heart in my throat. A figure emerged from the shadows, tall and cloaked in darkness. Beneath the hood, two piercing eyes glowed like embers. "You think you can just take what you want?" The voice wasn't just a warning, it felt like a curse. I need the herbs," I stammered, backing away, but my fear was met with a sudden sharp laugh that sent chills down my spine. "Need or want?" The figure leaned closer, revealing a pale, twisted smile. "The price is greater than you can imagine. What will you give?" I swallowed hard, heart racing. "I don't have anything to offer." "Then perhaps you'll lose something instead," it hissed, and the shadows around me thickened. I could feel them closing in, freezing me in place. The clearing began to ripple like water as darkness poured from the figure's cloak. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. "You can't hold me here," I shouted, panic rising within me, but it only laughed again. Then, with a sudden rush, the shadows lunged, tendrils reaching for me with an insatiable hunger. I felt their cold grasp, and in that moment, everything flashed back, the healer's warning, the laughter I had once dismissed. I was terrified of what lay ahead, but I couldn't let the darkness consume me. I had to fight back. I focused on the moonflower, its glow cutting through the dark. If this was my only chance, I had to take it. "Let me go," I screamed, lurching for the moonflower. The moment my fingers brushed against its petals, a blinding light erupted. I expected pain, but felt warmth flooding through me instead. In that instant, I didn't know if I had made a grave mistake or a powerful choice, but I knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The light enveloped me, wrapping around my body like a comforting blanket. I felt the shadows retreating, their suffocating grip loosening as the moonflower's glow brightened. I squeezed my eyes shut, overwhelmed by the sudden warmth that filled me. I didn't know how long it lasted, seconds or maybe minutes. When I finally opened my eyes, the figure was gone. The clearing was still, the only sound the gentle rustle of leaves above me. The moonflower remained, its soft light shimmering like a beacon. My heart raced as I stumbled forward, wanting to grasp the flower and the power it promised. But I hesitated. Was I meant to take it? I felt the weight of the figure's words still pressing on my mind. What price would I pay? As I stood there, the air crackled with energy, and a feeling fluttered in my chest. hope mixed with dread. I quickly glanced back, expecting to see the creature return, but the shadows felt different now. They rather shaped the edges of the clearing, no longer reaching for me but merely watching. I knelt beside the moonflower, taking in its delicate beauty. "Please work," I whispered. "I need this." I gingerly reached out again, fingers trembling as I traced the flower's luminescent petals. Just as my fingertips grazed the bloom, a rush of images flooded my mind. Visions of the villagers, their laughter echoing, faces turning serious as they spoke of me, the miracle I disregarded. The healer warning about the balance of nature. I recoiled, the intensity almost too much to bear. Then, out of that whirl of emotion, clarity struck. I understood what I needed to do. I grasped the flower firmly, pulling it from the earth. A sharp pain shot through me, like the roots of the plant tearing away from a lifeline. But as I exhaled, the warmth spread, filling my entire being with vibrant energy. I turned my attention to the nightshade. The healer had warned against it, but in my gut I sensed its urgency. The duality of the herbs, the moonflower's healing light, and the nightshade's dark allure. I had to combine them. I had to take a risk. "Just a little," I murmured, my heart racing. I reached for the nightshade, gathering its leaves. As my fingers brushed the glossy surface, the shadows flickered momentarily, like they were anxious. A rumble in the distance made me jump. The growl returned, louder this time and closer than ever. Instinctively, I raised the moonflower in front of me like a shield. "Stay back!" I yelled, the sudden fear strengthening my voice. I scanned the trees. That's when I saw it. A dark silhouette weaving between the trunks, slinking closer. My breath caught as I backed away, clutching the herbs tightly. I didn't understand what I had just unleashed, but now something was after me, drawn by the very power I sought. The ground shook beneath me, and with it came a sense of urgency. I had to get out of this clearing and back to civilization. But the path I initially followed was obscured, swallowed by the shadows that now pulsed like living creatures in the moonlight. With adrenaline igniting every nerve, I turned and ran. The growl grew louder, more insistent, echoing through the trees. I could feel the darkness surging behind me, hungry and relentless. At that moment, I realized I was no longer just searching for answers. I was the answer, and it was about to catch up with me. I tore through the underbrush, branches clawing at my skin and snagging at my clothes. The growling followed, a constant reminder of the danger behind me. I didn't dare look back. Each footfall felt heavy as my feet pushed off the ground, desperate to evade whatever hunted me. I had to find a way out. The shadows twisted at the edges of my vision, eager to draw me into their embrace. They formed a dark maze, the trees around me seemingly alive, shifting and closing in. The moonflower still pulsed in my hand, its light flickering as though sensing my frantic energy. Think, I gasped, trying to clear my mind. The healer's warnings echoed in my ears and dread clawed at my insides. Suddenly, I recalled tales of the woods becoming a trap for the unwary. I needed to outsmart the darkness. I made a sharp turn to the left, hoping to lead whatever stalked me away from my scent. I managed to skirt a fallen log and stumbled into a small thicket. I crouched low and pressed my back to a tree, panting. The growl faded momentarily, but I could still hear rustling nearby. Something was still searching for me. Glimmers of moonlight filtered through the leaves, and I spotted a cluster of rocks ahead. If I could reach them, I could perhaps make a stand or hide better. But there was no certainty the darkness would just let me go. I pressed my palms against the rough bark, feeling the rhythmic thrumming of my heart as I focused. What had I done? A twig snapped behind me and I jumped, heart racing again. I forced myself to stay still, listening. Something was moving closer. The growl returned, a low rumble that sent chills down my spine. My grip tightened around the moonflower. I had to act. Taking a deep breath, I bolted toward the rocks. My legs cried out for me to stop, but I pushed through the pain. I could see the shadows shifting, drawing toward me with an urgency that mirrored my own. As I reached the safety of the rocks, I turned just in time to see a massive shape break through the tree line. It was larger than anything I had ever known, muscular and draped in darkness, with eyes glowing like embers. It paused, nostrils flaring, sensing my presence. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest, wishing the earth would swallow me whole. The beast seemed uncertain. It paced, growling low under its breath, the sound vibrating in the air. I raised the moonflower instinctively, hoping its light would ward it off. "Stay away!" I shouted again, though my voice faltered slightly. Then something unexpected happened. It stopped, tilting its head as if understanding my fear. Its growl transformed into a rumble, vibrating through the ground. I caught a glimpse of jagged teeth and a massive jaw, but there was an odd intelligence in its gaze. That's when I realized I hadn't just taken the moonflower, I'd tapped into something else, a deeper magic that tied me to this creature, this force of nature. The truth hit me like a punch. I wasn't merely being hunted. I had become part of the very balance I had disregarded. As the creature stared, I felt the weight of choices I'd made, and the path I was on became all too clear. Before I could process it, the shadows shifted again, darker and more menacing. The growl intensified, vibrating like a threat in the air. I needed to make a decision, and I had to make it fast. This was just the beginning. I stood frozen, caught between the beast and the encroaching shadows. The creature's gaze bore into mine, and for a moment I almost believed it wouldn't hurt me. But the growl grew stronger, a reminder that whatever bond I felt was fragile and untested. The air thickened, heavy with tension. I glanced over my shoulder, the darkness pressing in, eager to claim me. It was time to decide. "Listen," I breathed, trying to keep my voice steady. "I don't want to hurt you." The words felt absurd, but desperation fueled me. The shadowy shape seemed drawn to my fear, swelling with energy, whispering of traps and terrors. The creature took a slow step forward, its head dipping slightly, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. It mirrored my heartbeat, each thud sending vibrations through the earth. My instincts screamed to run, yet something held me there, connected by an invisible thread. Then I heard it, a sharp hiss, unlike anything I'd ever encountered. From the thick underbrush, another shape emerged, sneering with eyes that glinted like shards of glass in the moonlight. It was smaller, but it radiated an aura of raw aggression. It stalked low to the ground, muscles coiled, ready to strike. Just as the reality sank in, the larger beast roared, a sound so powerful it sent a rush of wind through the trees. The smaller one hesitated, caught between obedient fear and unrelenting hunger. I couldn't comprehend what I was witnessing. A battle for dominance. Instinct told me I could die here. My heart raced. "Please," I shouted, the panic rising. "I'm not your enemy." A crack echoed behind me. The larger creature snapped its head towards the noise, giving me a beat of stillness. It took another step, closer now, and I felt the warmth radiating from its body. It was a sentinel, standing guard. Then I noticed a small pile of bones hidden behind the rocks. I stumbled back, realization flooding in. It hadn't just been hunting me. This had been a territory clash, and I'd unwittingly wandered into its domain. That's why it wasn't attacking. It was protecting something, waiting for a chance to reclaim what belonged to it. The growl of the smaller beast returned, louder now, and it lunged. My instincts kicked in. I flung the moonflower toward the smaller creature, the light illuminating the dark like a flare. It was a split second, but enough to distract it. I darted for the trees, heart pounding as branches whipped against my skin. The larger beast let out another deafening roar, and against all odds, it charged towards the smaller one, driving it back further into the shadows. My escape opened up before me, but I hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" I whispered, not expecting an answer. Then everything shifted. A piercing howl ripped through the air, one that echoed deep within my soul, as if the forest was responding to the turmoil unfolding before me. I had to leave. If I stayed, I'd be caught in a fight I didn't understand. I sprinted, adrenaline coursing through my veins, tears streaming from the raw wind. But as the trees began to close in around me, I caught a glimpse of the meadow up ahead, a possible escape. But the howl echoed again, filled with urgency and despair. I stopped mid-stride, torn. I couldn't just run, not now. I took a step back, heart racing with the weight of my decision. What was I getting into? I stood there, torn between flight and an inexplicable pull towards the chaos I had just fled. A part of me wanted to throw caution to the wind and run, yet another part whispered that my part in this had only just begun. "Get a grip," I told myself, glancing back toward the tension that crackled in the air. The ground trembled under the weight of those primal growls. I wasn't just an observer. I was intruding on a wild realm, one that could swallow me whole if I wandered too far. With a deep breath that felt too shallow, I stepped back into the forest's embrace, heart still hammering in my chest. I needed to understand. I needed to see. My footfalls were quiet, like whispers in hushed conversation. I edged toward the last spot I'd seen the beast. A ghost of a feeling hung in the air. When I reached the clearing, the scene before me left me breathless. The larger creature stood over the smaller one, half hidden in shadows. It had pinned it down, but it wasn't attacking. Instead, its gaze was fierce but possessive, like it wanted to claim the darkness as its own. I crouched low, hiding behind the thick underbrush. The smaller beast writhed beneath the larger one, but its anger was derailed. It was a captured flash of fury, mixed with desperation. The howl from the larger beast had signaled not just a defense of territory, but also a warning, a primal declaration that this forest belonged to it. Then, an astonishing thing happened. The larger beast licked the smaller one across the back, a gesture that seemed oddly tender. Seconds passed and I almost forgot to breathe. The moment held magic within the wildness, igniting an unexpected loyalty in me. If the larger beast could show compassion, maybe I could too. But that thought shattered as I heard rustling behind me. My heart dropped. Had I drawn more attention than I intended? I quickly turned and caught a glimpse of movement in the shadows. 2 more shapes, creeping closer. They were equally menacing, eyes glinting, ready to join the fray. Panic surged. I needed to warn the larger beast. I didn't know how, but instinct kicked in. I scrambled to my feet and moved forward into the clearing. "Hey, over here!" I shouted, my voice cracking under the pressure. The creatures turned in my direction, and for a moment, everything seemed to still. The larger beast's eyes locked onto mine, confusion melding with the fire beneath its ferocity. It hesitated, then shifted its weight, defensive now of me and its territory. And in that instant, the smaller beast took its chance, launching itself at me with a snarl. I barely registered the danger before I felt the wind rush against me as I dove to the side, my body instinctively rolling to avoid the onslaught. The world flipped upside down. Then everything went black. Staring into the void, I felt the weight of the forest close around me, and fear clawed at my insides. What had I done to provoke this? Would I pay the price for my misguided intervention? I don't know how long I lay there, punctuated only by the harsh echoes of growls and the heavy thudding of my own heart. In that moment, darkness enveloped me completely, not just around my body but inside my mind. I was lost in a void, where all my regrets came rushing back. Mockery of the healer, denial of the unseen. Everything I had brushed aside suddenly felt as tangible as the pain still coursing through my arm. But then, through the blackness, a light flickered. A memory or a warning. I was outside the healer's cottage, laughing with others, dismissing the very world that now threatened to consume me. The choice to turn away from knowledge, from potential friendships with magic and nature, had brought me here. I blinked against the encroaching darkness and suddenly found myself back in the clearing, heart pounding, breaths shallow. I was still on the ground, but the commotion around me quickened. The larger beast loomed over me, but its ferocity had shifted, confusion now prevailing in its gaze. The smaller creature was gone, absorbed by the shadows that danced against the trees. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline flooding my veins as the shadows thickened. The air throbbed with tension, and before I could process my surroundings, the larger beast stepped closer, looming over me like a dark guardian. Its breath was hot, mingling with the fear and unease that wrapped itself around me. "You could have died," I whispered, unsure if it was a thought or a plea. In that moment, I understood. I had crossed boundaries I didn't fully comprehend. It studied me, and I could feel the ancient power that lingered in its presence. "We are connected now," my heart pounded, by what I dared to meddle with. But just as I sensed a flicker of understanding between us, I heard it, the rustling from the shadows again, and another low growl. I turned, bracing myself for a fight, but the larger beast remained still, now fixated on whatever lurked just beyond the trees. From the cover of the dark came more shapes, skittering closer, reclaiming the space I thought I knew. They emerged from the shadows, wild eyes trained on me. In that moment I witnessed not only the power of nature's ferocity, but also the camaraderie of this wild realm. They were not mere hunters or adversaries, they were extensions of the stories built in blood and bone. I raised the moonflower instinctively, its gentle glow illuminating the encroaching darkness. I was terrified but emboldened. "I'm not your enemy," I called to the beasts, hoping this time my sincerity would resonate. The shadows paused, curious as they assessed me. The larger beast now turned towards the newcomers, letting out a low rumble, commanding the space like a king. The growls subsided for a moment, and for an instant I felt that fragile bond, the understanding that extended beyond words. Before I could gather my thoughts, the darkness shifted again, swallowing much of the moonlight. An unsettling calm settled in, yet a storm brewed beneath the surface. I glanced back at the larger beast, searching for some kind of reassurance. But it was gone, swallowed by shadows as the creatures began to encircle me. The atmosphere thickened, an intricate web of uncertainty and anticipation weaving among us. I felt their watchful eyes piercing into my soul, clamoring for the truth I carried. Then, without warning, they lunged, a wild flurry of movement that stole the breath from my lungs. I could feel the heat of their bodies, the pulse of the powerful energy churning before me. But just as fear threatened to crush me, a new understanding dawned. I raised the moonflower high, allowing its light to spill into the darkness, battling back the unknown. "I am part of this," I shouted, unleashing the potency of my words. "And if you want me, then you must confront what you've created together." There was a shift in the air, an ancient magic responding to my plea. The creatures paused, suspended in their motion, as if they sensed the turn of fate. The shadows receded slightly, revealing the glimmering shapes of the forest once again. What had I awakened? The essence of this land, the darkness that had laced through my veins. I couldn't be sure. But there, in the depths of fear and uncertainty, I found a flicker of hope. The shadows around me whispered, curling tendrils of energy pulsing toward the light of the moonflower. And in that luminous moment, with beasts as protectors or adversaries, born from darkness or molded from magic, I felt a part of it all. Then everything fractured again, the darkness surging forward, reclaiming the space, enveloping all I cherished. In the chaos that followed, the connection deepened. bound as I was to this forest, I realized how fragmented I truly was, caught between the mundane and supernatural, living with half-truths. As the veil of night closed in, I took my first step toward understanding. Perhaps my fate was tied not just to the darkness or the light, but to the very fabric of what tangled them together in this wild realm. I would face the unknown. The truth still hovered on the horizon, shifting, elusive, and breathtaking in its ambiguity. And whether magic or nature, I would learn what it meant to be alive in both the light and darkness. Yet whether I would ever escape the encroaching shadows was still unknown. That much, perhaps, would forever linger in the silence of the forest, whispering secrets I wasn't yet ready to unravel.